Welcome. I'm Jacquie Molloy from Meaningful Aging Australia. As we begin today's session, as always, let's start with our acknowledgement of country. And as I do, you can also acknowledge the lands you're joining us from today in the chat. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. For the Meaningful Aging team, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And we pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise their continuing connection to land and waters and the animals who live there, and to community. We honour the enduring strength and spiritual resilience of First Nations peoples. Well, it's so great that you've joined today because today is the third and final episode of our conversation series, The Shadow of Aging, Making Friends with Time. And we're back with friend and special guest, Kim Thoday, who's joining us today from the other side of the world at a very early hour of the morning. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And yes, can I say good morning to everyone from York, from fairly cold York at around about 4 a.m. York in the UK. So look, it's great to be here, and I just join with Jackie in a very, very warm welcome to everybody. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, we can.
Good. That's good. I don't want to
Kim,
wake people up. My end.
um, Kim, I'm going to throw us in the deep end, um, talking about time. We're going to get to questions, I think, a little earlier than usual today to make sure that we've got time for discussion. So just wanted to give some ideas and thoughts for you to percolate on. Um, there's this notion that time moves faster as we get older. And the theory behind that is that we have less novel experiences and more predictability in our lives, and that's why it feels like it speeds up. Um, I'm sure that there are lots of people who have the opposite feeling that time slows down and there's a lot of time to get through every day. But I'm interested in people's thoughts about whether, how that feels true and whether the idea of searching out new and novel experiences is something that could perhaps make us more optimistic about time and about aging. And interested to know if anyone's kind of doing that, either on an ad hoc level or as a particular strategy of trying to make the best use of time that they can. So, all of that to say that aging intertwines subjective time perception, biological changes, and the effect of societal roles. Now, which one of those feels bigger? Kim, what do you think about that? I think biological changes is
Wow.
the kicker for me. Um,
Yeah, right.
mm,
Yeah, I think I'm certainly learning that that's part of the story for me. That's part of my experience too, Jackie. Um, yeah, I think so those changes in the body um, is certainly there. I think for me it's also the societal roles. I think that would be one for
yeah,
me actually. So I think the recognition to a fair degree that I've spent a lot of my time, my life, actually being a bit of a human doing. So the recognition that identity is really tied up in some of the roles that, work roles,
mm,
professional
mm,
roles, roles within the family.
yeah,
Community roles, those kind of things. And so there's been this. yeah, extraordinary amount of doing. And I think, I've been reflecting too that I think at a much bigger macro level, our system, our economic kind of system, for instance, that we are all part of, means that we are expending, time has been going pretty fast, but I haven't always kind of recognized that. Um, the uh, our lifestyle of accumulating things, for
Hmm.
instance,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
our ambitions that we have when we are younger, and all of a sudden, I feel like, I've to some extent I've projected my soul, as some of the contemplatives kind of articulate it this way, projecting. When I say projecting my soul, for me, what I mean about that is projecting that part of me, that deep spiritual part of me, outwards, and attaching it to things and to ambitions and those, yeah. And all of a sudden, I find myself, Jackie. I feel at times like I haven't got much time left now,
Yeah.
and that those kind of things, in the end, haven't been what I thought that they would be, um, altogether.
I completely agree with
Yeah.
you. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. It's,
is that helpful?
it is. It is. I mean, is it, I think what you've done is answered a question that I have is it possible to experience the good when it feels like time is running out? And
Yeah. It's good.
I suppose it depends, doesn't it? It depends on how locked into time running out you are, because the feeling that time's running out can also promote, well, now I'll make the most of every single moment, and
Yeah,
wanting to
which is a
fill your
kind of,
life like that,
sorry, what was that last bit, Jackie?
and wanting to fill your life.
Ah, yes. And I think that can be the danger because, the kind of new novelties that we perhaps try to, almost desperately kind of clutch onto can be actually a new kind of doing again. Um,
Hmm.
it's been
Yeah.
interesting. So I'm in York at the moment, and yesterday and a few days before, I was in Stratford upon Avon. You know, the home of who, the great bard,
The bard
uh, w
himself.
w the bard William Shakespeare, and it just dawned on me. I thought, oh, yes, that great line, "To be or not to be." I thought, it just came into my mind, as it would. I think most tourists would uh, latch onto something like that. I thought, yeah, actually, now I'm in thinking about all of this in preparation for today. I thought, now I'm hearing that in a new way. What a profound insight that Shakespeare had. To be or not to be, yeah,
Mm.
like if we're doing too much doing, then we're not being. That is the question.
Oh,
How,
interesting. Yeah.
to, yeah. So I think it is. Yeah, I think if, certainly, I would say absolutely. I think that this time, this phase of life, in the latter phase of life, can certainly be, um, time to find that the good, actually. But I'm wondering whether, um, it's it's a lot more about being and discovering who we are and having time, your your kairos time rather than your
Yeah.
chronos time
Yeah.
to reflect and to contemplate. Um, so the importance of the great traditions, I think, in all religions of contemplation is a focus. Yeah, is the way to um, discover the soul again, uh, and the inward rather than the outward projection of our soul or our ultimate um, questions and our ultimate concerns actually in life. And I think in that we can discover a great deal of good actually. Um, I like, for instance, it occurred to me again. I haven't thought about it for a while, but St. Francis of Assisi and his emphasis on embracing, you know, through contemplation, through being, through to be, is to embrace the leper within, which is a bit counterintuitive, actually, but to 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 know our vulnerable self
Mhm. Yeah.
and to find what in truly knowing our vulnerabilities actually can help us discover who we really are.
It feels like
Uh,
it feels like there's got to be a space between the doing and the being, that there's a bridge we need
yeah,
to cross, isn't there?
it's good.
To make friends
Mm,
with time, there's a bridge we need to cross so that we can, because we can't go from doing to just suddenly being introspective and
no,
considering who we are.
yeah,
We need to physically slow down
hmm
and mentally slow down as well to get the right rhythm for the next type of incarnation that we have as we
that's good.
age. Um, and I'm wondering what that bridge looks like. Is it one of pain, the pain of losing identity? Does it mean that we have to acknowledge what we're leaving behind?
Mm. Letting go, yes.
Letting
People talk
go.
about letting go. It's a bit of a thing that in some cultures, some subcultures,
Yeah.
I think about the flower power era that was part of when I was very young. I remember a bit about the flower power era. It was all about letting go, man.
Yeah.
Um, there's something in that. I mean, I think
But
it
they can be
became a bit of
painful, right?
a very actually,
Yeah.
but very necessary. Our necessary losses, to quote Judith Viorst. Yeah, our necessary losses, so important. Um, what are the things? What are yeah, Jackie? Yeah, I love the reminder there that um, you know, going inward. It's not about an escapism. Going inward is it's not it's not just leaving the going outward behind. It's not one or the other in the end.
Right.
It's just that there's for many, I think, can I really speak for myself? I think, but as a product of my culture, I think there's been an overemphasis on the outward. That's all.
Yes.
An
Yes.
emphasis, sorry, um,
Mhm.
on the doing,
Yes.
on the doing. That's all. Yeah, we are still creatures that need purpose in life,
Absolutely. We need
aren't
a
we?
reason to get out of bed.
Yes, that's right. So doing is, yeah, being creative and doing is, Yeah, it's not a denial of that, but it's a recognition actually that, the trouble is when we're not aware that we've almost kind of given that doing some form of divinity, some form of um, yeah, control, supreme kind of control over ourselves. Actually, that's the problem,
Yeah.
I think. So, I'm beginning to realize, I think, in my um, own life that I need to reflect more deeply about my compulsions, if you like, my obsessive compulsions would be perhaps going too far, but the impulses that are there that I'm not always aware of, that have governed much of my life about being successful. I'd say three things: being successful, the compulsion to be right, you know, even when I'm wrong,
Hmm.
to to be
Mm.
self-justifying and to be right, and the compulsion to control. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing the hippie thing a bit, tongue in cheek, letting go, it's about relaxing my grip on not allowing those things to have the grip on me as much. About I don't need to succeed so much at the expense of others, for instance, or to be right, which has often been at the expense of others, and certainly to control. Again,
It
it's
is.
not an either or entirely.
No,
There are
no.
times to have there are times to have some control in your life. There are
Hmm.
certainly times to still, succeed in some things, and it's okay to be right. In fact, we need to be right sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
when we give them some godlike quality. So what would be
Yes.
the alternatives, everyone? If if we're letting go of those things, what are the kinds of things that we want to embrace, Jackie, in our
Yeah.
lives?
Yeah.
What would people think would be a question um, to our participants today?
Yeah.
What might be something? I think the things that we need to embrace require um, a different sense of time.
A different sense of time and a deeper
Yeah,
significance.
yeah, yeah.
I noticed that the chat is going off. So, as the
Right,
kids would
that's
say,
good.
the chat's going off.
But hey, while there's just a pause, can I do one quote, one book
Please
that I've
do.
been reading, one book that I've been reading, this one here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Simplicity, Simplicity, the art of living. It's an oldie but a goodie by someone I've admire a great deal and have even had the opportunity to work with a while ago. But that's quite a long while ago. Richard Rohr, the Franciscan um, priest. Jackie, he on page 91 of this book, he gives honestly it gives me goosebumps. Got to say, this is the best quote I've ever heard about contemplation, or to use the modern term in a way, mindfulness, if you like. He says this: contemplation is a loving. I'll start again. I can't quite see in the dark here. Contemplation is a long, loving look at what really is. A long, loving look at what really is that requires time. The essential
Oh,
element, he says, the essential element in this experience is time. There's a qualitative difference between 10 minutes and 10 hours, and all the more, of course, between 10 hours and 10 days. Finally, he says, we have to find a place where we can receive all our experiences without repressing anything. We need a place where there's room for everything that we've done or not done in our life.
Mm.
A place that's bigger than yes or no. A place that's bigger than the judgment and the judgments we pass. And this all embracing place will become clear to us. In this place, there is room for every part of you.
I'm thinking of, as you say that, Sal shared um, that Viktor Frankl quote.
Ah,
Did you put that in the chat, Sal? Excellent. So people can see that. It's the analogy
oh,
of a
great.
movie. Oh yeah, I can see it there. Consider a movie. It consists of thousands upon thousands of individual pictures, and each of them makes sense and carries a meaning. Yet the meaning of the whole film cannot be seen before its last sequence is shown. However, we cannot understand the whole film without having first understood each of its components, each of the individual pictures. Isn't it the same with life?
Great, Sally. That is, thank you. That is, yeah, that's very powerful. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just having a look at the chat. There's a lot in here. Um, I hope
I can't
everyone
see it at all, so thank you.
I hope everyone is looking at the chat, except for you, Kim.
Yes, I can't see the chat at all, but that's okay.
Um, Sal, you've put something in the chat about contemplation. Would you like to come off mute and read that?
Mm.
Hello, I just typed up what Kim was saying as he was saying it and popped it in there.
Oh,
So everybody can read it again and again and again if they want to. And I'm
oh, thank
jealous
you.
you've met Richard Raw. My goodness. But I did earlier
Yes,
put in
yes.
that um this all intertwines so beautifully. So I'm thinking, what can we do if we are with an older person, or what can we encourage to do? Because sometimes time does drag on and it can be a challenge to actually be in the situation because we can't actually change it. It is what it is. But Elizabeth McKinley says that actually that contemplation at the end of life is actually our final tasks, the things we need to do. So maybe this is the time of life to take that opportunity to reflect on your past conflicts or hurts or uncertainties and to
Mm,
think about the things we've done or not done and what has been or has not been done to us by others, and being incredibly kind to ourselves. Think about things that we may regret and maybe ponder resolution or reconciliation or atonement. And as Liz said in the chat, it does start with awareness and it shifts to, well, where am I right now? Um, and you can ask others or ready or yourself, who am I? What was most important in my whole story? What do I want my
mm.
family to know about me? And this grabbing hold of that opportunity can actually be really precious. So it may feel like time is sort of just dragging on at the end, but actually, even if we can't do, we can be with these questions. And that takes a lot of courage.
It does take courage. Here's a question for you, Sal and Kim.
Yep.
I'm just keeping Sal on the line. Um, do we get a choice? in doing this work. We're talking about, how to do the work, being loving to ourselves. Um, do we get a choice though?
I'd say yes, in that when we're being and we have to be in a situation, we can choose to escape it, especially if it feels unbearable. We can choose to escape it. We can choose to run away. We can choose to just, grit your teeth and go through it. You can choose to ignore it, or you could choose to engage with it and embrace, well, this is how life is. So what am I going to get out of it? Sort of thing. Sometimes they don't actually have a choice, as Heather said. They don't get people to hear the stories that they want to share. Heather, that is just brilliant.
Mm. Mm.
We so as carers, are we prepared to hear their stories? Are we prepared to listen? Maybe we need to ask ourselves, do I really listen? And what do I listen for? Am I wanting to know the facts, or setting someone straight, or am I actually focusing on the meaning of the events in their stories and what's important to them right now as they make sense of the past? So maybe we need to be giving those opportunities, and as Kim said, creating those spaces, creating that area. It might be for 5 minutes, it might be for an hour, just listening without commenting or fixing or correcting or anything. Am I comfortable with silence to make that space and give that time to say what someone might need to say at this time in life?
Yeah, that's exactly what we need to be doing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Heather has also just mentioned in the chat that Michael Verdi from the Memory Bridge in the US does work with helping people to be with people with dementia. And I've got to confess, this is where my own research is. And you cannot hurry. You cannot be impatient. It's that calm presence. And I think not just with people with dementia, but with all of us, are we really truly present, just being in that moment and in that situation, not jumping in with our own experiences. What are we listening for? How am I listening? Am I thinking of what I'm going to say next, or am I simply listening? And dementia that's really, really important. And also just being in that situation with that awareness of what's actually in this time, at this moment, with this person.
Sally, thank you so much.
Welcome.
It's always great to have you here. Um, I'm just going to say it again. The word loving, Kim, in that Richard Rohr quote, um, the long loving look, that's for us, but it's also, as Sal said, in the work with for carers as well, isn't it?
Very true.
Loving
Yeah,
compassion.
yeah. Look, I'd only echo your comments there, Jackie, about Sal too. That was terrific. And I totally agree about yeah. We do have a choice. Of course, there is a choice um, in these matters. And yeah, thanks, Jackie. That I think yeah, that long, loving look at
Mm,
ourselves uh, is required, isn't it, before we can do the same and experience um, the the value and the worth and the love of the other and the love for the other. Hence, St. Francis, going back to St. Francis again, it was only as he truly came to be able to accept himself in all his vulnerabilities that he realized that he was only, of course, different by a degree or two
yeah.
from those that they called lepers in those days, and changed his life when he was able to finally reach out and literally embody and embrace a leper. Um, so I think um, it's absolutely gold, isn't it, when somebody notices us. And as Sal was speaking, I'm thinking about my my decades now of working in aged care, and uh, time and time and time again, um, what wasn't happening for people very often was that they were not really being noticed. Just being noticed. Actually, somebody stopping and noticing something about the person, um, and then being valued. That the kind of going a step further in that relationship, if you like. Wow, isn't it gold? We know, don't we, when we're actually valued, how, and then
Mm.
you know to finally have somebody who actually gets us, who really has taken the time to understand how powerful and how transformative that is. And of course, we know that it's a two-way thing, isn't it? Like when we are involved in that kind of work, when we that's that crossing the bridge, isn't it? Uh,
Yeah.
that is moving into the liminal space. That's what that means. And Sal was right. That means a fair bit of work's had to go on, actually. Usually, not always, but usually has had to go on with us and our presuppositions and our biases, and whether we're having a crappy day or not. And um, we've had to do a fair bit of work on ourselves to get to that moment where we can really begin to notice the other, and value the other, and understand the other. That kind of meeting, if you like, in the middle of that bridge. That there's a great definition, isn't there, of sacred space? I think
Mm.
there is something sacred about that meeting of the other, two um, two human beings truly meeting and embracing. Yeah, that has the trans that therein lies the hope for ourselves, I think, um, and for the world, really, writ large.
I'm just looking at the chat. Michael Verde says that in neurological terms, indifference is experienced as threatening and therefore makes the person close up. That's so interesting, Heather. That's so interesting. Indifference is experienced as threatening. I totally get
Wow.
that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I hadn't come
Yeah.
across that quite like that. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm aware of the time, as always, um, but really happy for anyone to come off mute and have a chat. Um, any observations that you have or questions that you want to pose for us as a collective, um, please come off mute now or add to the chat. Um, and if you want to stick around, I know that Sal's got a beautiful story. It's only about 3 minutes. And so that's how we'll end the session, with Sal reading that story. But in the meantime, if anyone is holding a burning question or a burning observation doesn't really have the same ring, really doesn't. Burning question. We'll stick with burning question. No one's coming off mute though, so I may just go straight to Sal. I'll just check the chat.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately, as I popped in the chat earlier, and I did come across this story that others might be familiar with, and it's from Rachel Naomi Remen's book Kitchen Table Wisdom, and she's a big hotshot doctor, but she's been learning to go interiorly. So her, not a long story at all, but what struck me was we sometimes feel like we need to amuse people and get them to do things and get them to be part of everything. But sometimes it's actually okay not to do, but just to be. So this was an example of that. So Rachel writes, as an adolescent, I had a summer job working as a volunteer companion in a nursing home for the aged. The job began with a 2-week intensive training about communicating with the elderly. There seemed to be a great deal to remember. But by the first day, I was very, very anxious. But my first assignment was to visit a 96-year-old woman who apparently hadn't spoken for more than a year. A psychiatrist has diagnosed her as having senile dementia, and she hadn't responded to medication. And the nurses doubted she'd talk to me, but I hoped that I could engage. They had hoped I could engage with her. Whoa! My apologies. They hoped I could engage with her in a mutual activity. I was given a large basket filled with glass beads of every imaginable size and colour. We would string beads together. I was to report back to the nursing station in an hour. I did not want to see this patient. Her great age frightened me. The word senile dementia suggested she was crazy too. Filled with foreboding, I knocked on the closed door of her room. There was no answer. Opening the door, I found myself in a small room lit by a single window which faced the morning sun. 2 chairs had been placed in front of the window. In one sat a very old lady looking out. The other was empty. I stood just inside the door for a time, but she didn't acknowledge my presence in any way. Uncertain of what to do next, I went to the empty chair and sat down, the basket of beads on my lap. She did not seem to notice that I had come. For a while, I tried to find some way to open a conversation. The silence in the room was absolute. Somehow, it almost seemed rude to speak, yet I desperately wanted to succeed in my task. I considered and discarded all the ways of making conversation suggested in the training, but none of them seemed possible. The old woman continued to look towards the window, her face half hidden from me, barely breathing. Finally, I simply gave up, and I sat with the basket of glass beads on my lap for the full hour. It was quite peaceful. The silence was broken at last by the little bell that signified the end of the morning activity. Taking hold of the basket again, I prepared to leave, but curiosity overcame me, and I turned to her and I said, "What are you looking at?" And then I immediately flushed. Prying into the lives of the residents was strictly forbidden. Perhaps she hadn't heard, but she had. Slowly, she turned toward me, and I could see her face for the first time. It was radiant. In a voice filled with joy, she said, "Why, child, I'm looking at the light." Years later, I would watch newborns look at the light with that same rapt expression, almost as if they were listening for something. Fortunately, that day, I had not been able to find a way to interrupt. A 96-year-old woman may stop speaking because of damage to her brain or be psychotic and can't speak, but she may also have withdrawn into a space between worlds to contemplate what is next, to spread her sails and patiently wait to catch the light. I'd found her by accident, or perhaps by grace, and I learned how to just sit, how to be present in silence and trust life.
Oh, thank you, Sal. Thank you
Brilliant.
very
Thank you,
much.
Sal. Thank you very much, Sal. Mm.
That was great. Oh, well, on that note, we've gone from wondering if time moves faster as we get older to incredible examples of loving contemplation. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I think, too, Marnie, what we'll do this month is when we send out the replay, can we send a copy of the chat as a PDF? There are so many good things in the chat. And I think everyone would like to have a cup of tea and read through them. So let's do that. Let's do that. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye now.